This episode is brought to you by some amazing people. Patrick O'Leary, Taman R., Gary T., Eddie Tab, Diane Boss, Mecca Mickey, T-Bone, Jeanette Angel, Kelly Lewis, Richard and Fern Harrison, Nathan from The Quantum Show, Sir Brian Bowden, Prepper 88 M Wife Patriot, Gwen Hunt, Jeff Up North, Cloudwalker, Mike Ozzie, Marvelous Marvin, Samantha Morris the Cat, Brian R., Carnundrum, Helen of Crystals and Joanne, Jay Grove, Woo Writers DG, Timoth Man, Periwinkle Pixie, Enzo C., Shelley Montgomery, Aaron's Energy 313, Multifaceted Jules, Eric Booth, and the Diz Loki. And a special thank you to all of our subscribers on YouTube, Spotify, and now over on Rumble. If you wish to support the podcast, you can hit that join button below to become an Eyes to That Sky member. Or if you want to join our Patreon or to provide other support, the links are below in the show description. But for now, on with the show.
Hello, everyone. Just real quick. Tonight we are diving into a topic that is fascinating as it is unsettling. A topic that treads the line between history, the occult, and the unexplained, where ancient rituals, non-human intelligences, and hidden power structures may intersect in ways we've only begun to understand. We'll be discussing the use of ritual symbology and symbolism in space exploration, the connection between UFOs and esoteric traditions, and even the possibility that world leaders, perhaps unknowingly, have been positioned in cosmic ceremonies. We'll explore theories that challenge conventional beliefs, and some of what you might hear tonight may be disturbing. This conversation is not for the faint of heart. We'll be touching on elements of the occult, religious symbolism, and the potential influence of non-human intelligences and entities in our world. Our goal is not to sensationalize, but to ask the difficult questions that mainstream narratives often avoid. Viewer discretion is advised. This is a discussion meant for those who seek the truth, no matter how unsettling that truth may be. With that said, let's begin. Thank you.
Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, where we explore the unexplained and mysterious phenomena that have occurred throughout the state of Michigan and beyond.
From UFO sightings to ghostly encounters, we delve deep into the stories, the evidence, and the theories behind these strange events.
We are your hosts. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Wayne.
We are an educator duo that after an encounter with a triangular UFO in 2018 in Michigan, we decided to investigate UFOs and the paranormal. In this podcast, we will be speaking with eyewitnesses, experts, and researchers to uncover the truth about some of the most intriguing cases of paranormal activity in and around Michigan.
Our goal is not to convince anyone of the existence of these phenomena, but rather to provide a platform for discussion and exploration. So, buckle up and join us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole.
On an escalator.
All right. Hello, everybody. What's going on? Michelle.
Oh, well, we're pretty much frozen in the house with a whole bunch of snow.
Absolutely. Michigan is freezing over as we speak. We're talking negative 20 to negative 40 incoming for the next couple days. So we'll see how that all turns out.
I like that one little video out on TikTok. What is it? My body's not built for cold. My body's built for Margaritaville.
Yeah. Well, it is Sunday, February 16th, 2025, and we're coming to you from deep within our bunker in the shadow of the great Motor City, Detroit, Michigan, where we're freezing to death. And we want to thank you for joining us yet again for another special episode. We have one of our best buddies in the world. He's almost a relative at this point. We have demonologist and paranormal UFO researcher Nathaniel Gillis joining us here in just a few minutes. So let's get ready to lock in and get into the dark and disturbing tonight. And it's pretty rough. That's why I did the
His
little
disclaimer.
disclaimer, because this ruffles some people's feathers really bad when you have people that are all in on the UFO extraterrestrial hypothesis, and then somebody comes along and starts throwing Bible stuff and evidence at them as well. And that kind of goes to my question that you see posted in chat. And that question is, do you think it could be both? Do you think there's some spiritual stuff that's going on, interdimensional beings, non-human intelligences that the ancients wrote about in the biblical and religious text forever? And are we having extra, terrestrial visitations? And that's one of the things we'll talk to Nathaniel about. But man, some really dark stuff has gone on recently, and we'll get to that in a minute. Michelle, if they want to contact us, what do they do?
Yep. Remember, if you have a story that you would like to tell us or to get a hold of us anyway, please email us at mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com.
Also, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so with PayPal, Super Chats. You can buy us a coffee, check out our merchandise store, or join the Patreon. All those links are found below in the show description. You can also, if you decide to become a YouTube member or a Patreon member, you'll get a shout out during the intro and be listed in the credits at the end of the show as a thank you for your support.
Speaking of thank you, Nathan, for the super chat.
Absolutely.
Speaking of symbolism tonight, 333.
Yeah,
so
$3.33.
Don't forget to not just hit. We're talking smash, like Hulk smash. that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share us out. So, and next week, my sister from another mister.
Yes.
February 23rd, 2025 at 8 p.m. We're going to have our returning guest and everyone's favorite intuitive author and researcher, Gemma Jade.
Yep. So let's go ahead and start welcoming some people in chat really quick.
Ooh,
I know we're going to miss people, but let's try to get some.
Oh, let's see. We've got Diane Boss with us, Aaron's Energy, Lynn Monet, Mark Eddy, Straw Dog, Taban, T-Bone. Let's see. Who else? I know Mark is here.
Straw Dog, Taban.
Straw Dog, Taban. I know that I have a student watching tonight who he asked me not to use his name, but his first name begins with L. So thank you for joining us. You know who you are, my 7th grader.
That's right. All right.
Hey, Gary, thank you.
Hey, Gary, with the super chats. Thank you very much, Gary. We appreciate you, as always. Awesome. Thank you very much. Now, I say we dive into this because we are, don't forget the notification bell. That's right. Lynn just reminded us, don't forget that notification bell. Set those notifications. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's bring on the brother from another mother, the one, the only, Nathaniel Gillis. Sir.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Oh, man, we are doing great and very excited and kind of creeped out for this conversation we're about to have.
Oh, yeah. It's going to get interesting real quick.
Yeah, I'm really creeped out. I'm about 3/4 of the way through Diana Pasolka's latest book. And I think it's Encounters, I believe. And then she was on the Sean Ryan show. And let's just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and play this for everybody. Check this out, people.
images of Roman gods and goddesses put on the rockets. They would use Latin on their patches, their mission patches. And they would also have specific rituals that they would do, sometimes involving U.S. presidents. They would position the presidents at a certain point where astronomical events, would happen. And this, so Tyler had,
like the president of the United States.
Yes, the president of the United States. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just being positioned there. So, they're like, stand here, Mr. Obama or President Obama. And he would stand there with his wife and look this direction. It was part of the whole thing. And there were photos. He has photos of all of that.
I mean, can you be a little more specific? Why would they stand him in a
Well,
certain...
see, okay, so this is obviously some type of ritual, and I don't know why they're doing it. I just know that I'm a scholar of religion. I know a ritual when I see one.
Okay. All right. There it is. I saw that and I thought, Nathaniel, SOS, bro.
Yeah.
So now we got U.S. presidents and rituals during space launches. All right. And then everybody that's here probably already knows a little bit about JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratory, or Jet Propulsion's Laboratory, and how that got our space program started. But he's not talked about very much because he was into this ritual stuff. And he was getting downloads, and he was rubbing shoulders with people like Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard. And so here we are talking about, she knows rituals when she sees one, but she doesn't know what they mean or what they're for.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, what is going on with this, man?
And I think we talked about this earlier on Instagram, where, and may just be me, but my observation was that she was deeply uncomfortable sharing that with Sean. And I've been
Her
kind of
whole
past.
appearance was weird.
Yeah. I don't think that. I don't know. I don't know if she was supposed to share that. I mean, can you imagine a United States president in the middle of a ritual without even being told what's going on? Like, stand in this circle is what she said, and look this way. And then, they're going to honor their sponsors. So, yeah, that was deeply concerning. It's funny you mentioned it, because I've been kind of going back and forth with other researchers in the field, just kind of picking their brains as to what's going on. But one thing is for sure, it's not our imagination, right? It's not us trying to explain and kind of project our own dogmas on the phenomenon. Ritual magic is present through and through. It's not a bug, it's a feature in whatever this intelligence is. And a part of this as well is what's called Russian cosmism. It comes from their cosmonauts throughout history, and it's actually tied to a guy named Nikolai Kozyrov, who created the Kozyrov mirrors. I don't know if we ever covered that. My dear friend Len, how are you doing? You've got to email me. I'm not on Facebook anymore, so that's why I'm not in touch.
Yep. And she's going to be a guest here on April 6th, and we'll get more into that later on.
Heck yeah. So Nikolai Kozyrov created a mirror that kind of took sheet metal and kind of wrapped it into itself. And then once he created that design, later on, the Russian Academy of Science came through, and they created different variations of that design. In their experiments, they went to a top secret location, had different versions of these mirrors. They turned the lights off. They put sand everywhere, and then they would place these people in front of the mirrors as much as we can call them that, and then they would focus their attention. And in some of these experiments, there was a homunculus entity that would manifest, not unlike Lamb in Crowley Magic, and this entity would kind of look at them. I've had arguments with other people. Well, that's not how the mirror worked. It doesn't really matter, right? It looked at him, and it was one of the series of experiments included the homunculus looking at them, and then there was this fear that manifested to this person. And so upon that event, he said, "You know what? I'm terrified. I don't know what else to do." So he went back to his home. He got what's called the symbol of peace. And it was from his favorite philosopher. And so he placed it in front of the mirror. And instead of the phenomenon cowering in fear, it metastasized, it materialized even more. And he went back, and upon examination, and I've done my own research on this, that symbol that was once thought the symbol of peace is found to be in occult literature as well. So can I suggest once more that we're not conjuring them, they're conjuring us. And so it was after that main experiment, my friends, that this person went outside of that building, met a security guard on the way out, and the security guard said, "I don't know what you've been doing in that experiment. There has been a metallic object hovering over that building for the last 2 hours." And then from that moment, there was an explosion of UAPs everywhere in that location. So that's where a lot of this is coming from, Russian cosmism, where in order to further their scientific method, they literally, and again, this is not Nathaniel Gillis, right? This is someone who is in contact with the Invisible College, Diana Walsh Posuka, right? Some people say it, I guess it's worth more. But now we know, my friends, that absolutely that's what they're doing. And in her words, that these beings were their sponsors. Kind of sounds Crowleyan. Kind of sounds exactly what Parsons was doing.
What does that mean by that? What is she meaning by that? Our sponsor?
Man, the only thing I can think of is that number one, it is ceremonial magic. You won't find that in evangelicalism, right? Draw a circle, stand in the no, it's ceremonial magic. And anytime that's involved with space exploration, my mind all goes right back to Jack Parsons. So the only lineage of thought that I have right now is that these are the same beings Crowley was in contact with. These are the same lamb, right? Again, lamb manifesting as a homunculus in the experiments with the Kozyrov mirror in Russian Academy of Sciences. So I think that's what they're doing. I think it's the same entities. And sadly, we are 52 years removed from the Collins elite researchers who said 50 years ago something happened, someone or something came through, and it's not just that they incarnated, but there were aspects of our government, factions within our government, that were kind of connecting to them and making covenants with them. We'll do certain rituals for you. But I mean, this is right in front of us, my friends. This is not, again, it's not me projecting dogma. It's literally right in front of our eyes that they are performing ceremonial magic in an effort to please another species through their scientific method. I'll give you this if you give me this. And so it's this almost this symbiotic relationship between us and them. And that's exactly what the Collins elite gave us. Hey guys, there's something out there, and we have practitioners in our own government, or I'm sorry, psionic assets. So it's all just new terminologies, but now we're seeing it. That's 52 years removed. Now we're seeing the manifestations of it head on.
Was that the key? Was that the key ceremony or ceremonies back then, the 50 some years ago, that really opened everything up to them? It provided a bridge into
Yes.
our world.
Yes. So okay, there are two factions within our government. Number one, there are people that think that these beings are all great. They're amazing. They're extraterrestrial. There's nothing ritualistic occurring. And then there's other factions in our government, the Collins elite, that are saying, hey, listen, there's a lot of problems here. Number one, this does seem like sorcery, does seem like ritual, ceremonial magic. And we've known by experience, like even at the Livermore laboratories, where they would draw circles, just like they did in space programs, hoping that when the phenomena would incarnate, that it would play by the rules we believed they would play by. And what would happen is, just like with Parsons, the phenomena would bait them into communion, bait them into a relationship, and at the last second pull the rug from underneath them, and now you're making eye contact with something that has manipulated you entirely. So I believe it's the same phenomenon, right? It's just changed mask, but the one common thematic element throughout of all of it is ceremonial magic. And what disturbs me more than anything is that this seems to be just, par for the course. Just another day in the space program. By the way, Mr. President, go step in a circle. The kind of powers that exist that could literally think of manipulating the president. That's disturbing. And I'm just going to read into it a little bit. It's almost like they had no choice. Like, yeah, okay, you're going to stand here. No, and especially if we consider the amount of hitchhiker effect that's in the field now. Can you imagine that? You're talking about somebody that has Secret Service because they don't want to be assassinated, but you're going to put them in a ritual circle and perform ceremonial magic for the others?
But dude, not only stand in a circle, but face a specific direction as well.
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
really,
Where are they getting these rituals? You know,
that's a great question.
that's going to determine where we're at. I mean, we're going to get into a lot of my research here in a little bit, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Number one, that was profound. Number two, another thing that struck my ear was that she said that the real whistleblowers that have been briefing her and others in Congress are not the ones at these hearings.
Yeah.
There's another group, right, that's actually closer to the phenomenon, that understands it more, that set her down and said, okay, look, what we're seeing here scares us. And it makes perfect sense. You know, you have Tucker Carlson being briefed. And see, what was happening with me is I was having cognitive dissonance, right? I was hearing two different variations of the phenomenon, right? You have people that are saying, okay, it's all extraterrestrial, and you know, we don't know what they are. But those are the people that we're seeing out in these hearings. You know, the people that are briefing Diana Walsh Pasuka, that are briefing Tucker Carlson. If you remember Tucker, what he said, you know, politics aside, he said it scared him. He didn't even want to tell his wife. So I thought to myself, this is kind of incongruent. It's not really corroborated. It's not collab. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't until I watched the Sean Ryan interview, and I realized, oh, there's another group of researchers underneath the surface that they're not, you know, they have NDAs, but they're not testifying in front of Congress. And those people have a little bit more of a grasp on the phenomenon.
Well, she even said her one friend that's under the pseudonym of what is it? Tyler D.
Yeah, Tim Taylor.
Tim Taylor. Everybody knows it's Tim Taylor, but did you pick up on how he had a religious conversion at the Vatican?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting because he's also at Skinwalker Ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this conversion aspect of it's not abnormal. You know, I'm still looking for what kind of model of the phenomenon would push them to religion. You know, and that doesn't mean that it's horns and hooves. You know, in the Collins elite conclusions, they were already religious enough, but it seemed like they encountered something that scared them to the point that it stretched them out of the model of demonology. People think, oh my God, right, we're projecting this on a phenomenon. No, these were physicists from the Department of Defense. Somebody, one of the leading experiencers the other day was on Julian Dory, I think it was. And you guys would know him if I named him. He's like, oh, you know, the Collins elite, they were just simple folk. Really? Yeah, PhDs, physicists, just too simple, right? And they weren't simple at all. You know, these were they weren't science fiction writers, I can tell you that. That kind of points to who I'm talking about. But yeah, you know, they didn't do that. They were actually very sophisticated individuals who were approaching the phenomenon from a scientific method, just like all these other aerospace engineers that Diana Walsh Pasuka has spoken to. And I've had some of them reach out to me on LinkedIn, you know, and they're coming to the same conclusions that whatever this is, it's closer to the demonic hypothesis because of the ritual magic. But at the same time, it does seem alien to us. And so I think that we're somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
The scientific method is present, but which we can get down to the whole list of whistleblowers I got to talk about as well. But I think that's where we're at. And I think that's where Diana's at, where it's like, what is this? Like, this doesn't even fit the mold of horns and hooves, but it scares me enough to believe it is something more demonic.
Well, you know, I just happen to be sitting here and I'm thinking, and I believe I sent this to you as well in Instagram when we were chatting. Washington, D.C., and everybody says, oh, the District of Columbia, and their eyes roll back in the back of their head and don't think anything of it because they've probably been taught that the Columbia is something for Columbus, right? No, Columbia is a goddess. And then you look at the layout of Washington, D.C., It's a freaking pentagram. And then you have the Pentagon, and you have all these obelisks and ancient looking the White House, and all of this symbology is everywhere. So I looked up the space shuttle fleet.
Oh yeah, I know where you're going.
Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavor, which now don't exist much anymore, right? They've been all mothballed. But in Endeavor, you could make a nice sentence out of that. Endeavor, to challenge the discovery of Atlantis with Columbia.
Easily.
You
Yes.
know what is going on here, man?
And that's all an
it's
accident.
it's so in front of everybody.
Yeah, and there is this gaslighting effect in the field that I'm just growing tired of. They want to do it all. They want to have all the altars, all the ceremonies. They want to honor deities that allegedly don't exist. Wink, wink. And then lie to our faces. And I'm convinced that it is a gaslighting conspiracy. I mean, once we get into some of the case studies and whistleblowers I'm going to get into here later, it's going to be ironclad. Like, it's not going to be Nathaniel projecting, oh, his dad's a pastor and all that. No, I've grown out of a lot of dogma and I've grown into a lot of data, and the data doesn't lie. And it's to the point now where it's not okay. It's not our analysis that's flawed. It's literally people that are lying to our faces. And it's almost like they don't. It's like, okay, it's not that our arguments are wrong and that the data is lying. It's that they don't want to have the conversation. They want to play us off as illiterate, ignorant, dogmatic, and stupid. That's really what it is. We're the simple folk. Oh yeah, we're just simple. And I don't believe that's the case. And I'm telling you, there is a gap between people who are saying that and people who are like me, with boots on the ground researchers dealing with experiencers who are literally looking at sigils on skin. I guess we're making that up too. We're not. Again, it aligns hand in hand with the ceremonial magic. They're openly performing. And this goes with the fact that, yeah, sigils are on the skin. And this does point back to Thelema, the Golden Dawn, and the whole lot of ritual magic. It's crazy.
Speaking of that, and this gaslighting and things, and I know people have their political views and everything, and I don't really care about all that. But when you look at USAID, for example, this is how these people know how to manipulate people. People see US aid and they think we're providing aid to all these countries, and oh my God, the world's going to hate us because we cut them off. That's not what USAID stands for. USAID stands for United States International, or Agency for International Development. They're NGOs. They're non-government organizations that take money and launder it and use it to destabilize other countries right in your face. But you think they're providing aid. And then Obama went and removed the safeguards that said, CIA, you can't operate on American citizens. No. He took that away, and they use these NGOs to turn around and provide you with your memes and all that stuff that are all fake to get you to believe, take a jab, get a jab every month. Well, we know what that all did to people, right? The secret's out on that. Just like the secret's out on all this money, but it's right in front of your face.
Yeah, and they'll tell you, to not believe what you're seeing.
Right. It's not that. Don't worry. Look over there. It's the magician trick.
Yeah. It's so verbose. It's so verbose now. I'm tired of being punked, I'm tired of being lied to. Just tell me the truth. I mean, if I can go into this direction real quick, dealing with these initiatory practices the phenomenon employs, Matthew Roberts is one of the witnesses to the gimbal UAP. And immediately after witnessing that, he goes back to his personal quarters, and a voice comes to him and starts to reinterpret his experience, points him to the book, The Kabbalion, and gives him, according to him, an initiatory practice. He was initiated into something. Oops. Right? It wasn't a Chick-fil-A. It wasn't a Golden Corral. Nobody gave him a gift card. No, right? Again, pointing them back to Thelema and back to the occult practices. And so that's what I believe all of this is. And I can kind of break that down even further, because there are some new enlightening theories that I've had lately that disturb me. But I think our government knows that the phenomenon is initiating individuals, that these UFO manifestations are not mindless, unguided manifestations, that there is an intelligence behind it that is choosing victims, and it has its own pathology behind it. And so that's what we're really looking at. We've got to look beyond the smoke and mirrors, look at the pathology present, because the pathology doesn't lie. These beings can play half forward a Bledsoe. They can be the what is it, the Council of Line to Anjoli. They could do all of this. But the problem is, and I'm going to ramble for a second, if
Go
these
for it.
individuals do not have a foundation of phenomenology, they will bleed right through the archetypes, not realizing something is on the other side playing them. The Council of Nine is not just limited to Anjoli. That was a previously channeled group of people who, guess where they were from? Right? Hello, my friend. Yeah, of course, they were being channeled by occultists. And when they don't understand that, my friends, they have a new revelation from a novel intelligence. But when you go back and you pull the mask off, you start to see, oh my God, it's not new. It's new to them. It's not new to us. And so for those of us who have a thumb on the pulse of the phenomenon, it's quite obvious what's going on. I can go down another path here. It's even Richard Banderich, who's another whistleblower. He was former Lockheed Martin, former Skunk Works. He said 40 years ago, he was working for a governmental program that was going out into different areas of the country, and he was collecting metamaterials, nanotechnologies. And he said that when they held them in their hands, if you did not have the ability to reverse engineer it, it would decompose into dust. Now, you take that, and you take our federal government taking the same metamaterials, allegedly, placing in the hands of Chris Bledsoe. What are we doing? We're looking for somebody that this nanotechnology is designed for. And it's a race. This is just coming from me. It's a race for time. If we as a government can get to that practitioner first, before the phenomenon can get the technology in their hands, we have a chance. If not, you see where I'm going with this. It's an X-Files episode. If not, the phenomenon will have manifested metamaterials for a specific practitioner, and that practitioner will know this is exactly who it's meant for. That's what they're doing. We're thinking about testing the spirits, and that's necessary, but they're testing the practitioner. Is this made for you? If it's not, it won't even matter. Next person out. Are you being right? You see where we're going? Are you encountering the phenomenon? Yes. Okay. You may very well be the person they're after. Here you go. Let's test them. So in my mind right now, there is a race for time. And I think that practitioner is here. And I think that's what our government's doing. Knocking on the door of the phenomenon. Who is in contact with it more than others? Is that the candidate we're looking for? If so, can you help us design this and reverse engineer it? So that's happening. It's not my imagination. It's happening. But even Richard Banderick came to the conclusion that that in his quote is that there was something trying to manipulate our species 40 years ago. So what's happening, guys, is with respect to the metamaterials and nanotechnology and recovering it, we're 40 years behind. We're just now hearing about it in the public sphere, right? In terms of ceremonial magic being used to contact the others and the others sponsoring our aerospace programs, we're 52 years behind as the public. So now we're reverse engineering the phenomenon. Where were we 50 years ago? And oh my God, the startling revelation of if that's where we were then, where are we today?
We're at Gary Nolan scanning people's brains, dude.
Yeah. I'm telling you, they're looking for something.
We have Stephen Greer sitting people in circles trying to contact things. This stuff is getting getting out there, dude. Like,
it's dark. It's dark. I've
been digging into this stuff, dude, and And I'm getting more and more freaked out when I look at it from this kind of a perspective. Like I'm sitting here going, our whole nation's capital is a big frickin' altar. What the hell is going on here? And then the Russians were doing the same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they didn't realize what they were doing until it was too late. Matter of fact, one of the scientists that was performing rituals slash experiments with the Kozerov mirror, he came away from it and he said, number one, and people need to hear me out because this goes back into my research into necronetics. Number one, that was not just technology, but there was an intelligence using that technology, seeding it amongst our species, but using it as a way to portal, to teleport themselves from one dimension to this dimension. And so, yeah, it's technology to us, it's teleportation to them, it's incarnation to them. And so, when people have heard my research, the incantations are ancient, the incarnations are kind of modern, but it's the incantations we're after. And my friends, they are doing them right out in the open and then lying to our faces.
And everything we see is some type of an incantation.
Yep.
Right? CERN with the 666. It's right there with what is it? Shiva is outside,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, all of this stuff is literally right in front of us, and we don't think anything further of it other than they're just doing science. Are they contacting something? What is I just, because for me as a scientist, I would want to be as anti magic
Oh, of
symbolism,
course. Doesn't
right?
fit, does it? Doesn't fit at
No,
all.
it does
Sure.
not. That's the cognitive dissonance in my brain.
Mhm.
This stuff should not be getting done by Jack Parsons. He shouldn't be talking to Crowley. He should be, right? Why and how did he even figure out to
Right.
try to contact some kind of an intelligence to get a download or get downloads on how to build better rockets to get to space?
Oh, oh my God. Yeah, yeah. And in
Right?
my opinion, yes, sir. In my opinion, it's literally, it's almost like a species that cannot incarnate without our involvement. And it gives us the illusion of control and conjuring them. But by the time we've built the door, they are already opened it. And it's too late. And I'm still trying to quantify what they are. I do not believe that they are the horns and hooves demons. The evidence doesn't suggest that. I mean, I'm talking about Enochian sigils on experiencers. Time out. In the church, and I'm talking everybody that's evangelical, we have a significant problem. Our demonology does not have room for that. We're still stuck in Nephilim. We're still stuck in, oh my God, Rephaim. I say that humbly. The problem is, guys, the problem is that when they're carving sigils into skin, those are practitioners of sorcery. Those are a completely different species. And yet, whatever we're experiencing when we're out of body, when we're having near death experiences, whatever they are, they're the ones performing this on people. So, yes, and again, these UAP manifestations, they do seem to be initiations, involuntary initiations, where they're testing. Number one, can you see me? And our government's looking back saying, okay, if you could see them, there's something special about you. Again, right? We're trying to track the phenomenon. And so the phenomenon will initiate certain individuals, will ignore others. And so Gary Nolan, right? What's going on here? Why? Again, the evidence suggests they're looking for people. Are you the one? Are you the one? Why? Because again, it's an X-Files episode. It's a fight for time. It's a race for time. They're looking for certain people, or maybe even one, and we are too, because we don't know what the phenomenon's truly after. We just know it's incarnating in different ways. So if I just ramble, let me know. But I got a lot to say in a little bit of time. But back to these sigils. I another researcher had given me a sigil that Richard Doty had put out. And I know, he has his own history, but Doty was talking about sigils on experiencers. This researcher is very prominent. And if you haven't had her on a show, I'll tell you about her after the show. She's amazing. But she sent this to me, and I'm kind of triangulating, and I'm entering into some programs I have, comparing some grimoires I have in my office here. And it turns out to be it's one of two. It's either Enochian or it's Theban. Theban is medieval sorcery that should not be there. And I'm starting to think that some of the symbols that Luis Elizondo's talking about on these UAPs, right? Remember when they said, I can't find them in different languages? Right, because they're not a human language. Sigils. Now, the problem with sigil magic is that demons don't perform it. We do. That just destroys the horns and hooves argument, right? No, we do. Practitioners on this in this dimension perform that. What they do is they carve them into skin, they carve them into walls, they do everything they can with this kind of magic because what it does is it empowers the entity that this signature represents to incarnate into this dimension more. You have more authority here. Why? Because I just gave you your signature. Now you have dominion. You have a branding system here. So if we are having experiencers that are going out of body and then coming back into their body with Enochian sigils in their skin, all models are wrong. All models are wrong. Because whatever that is has the ability to know when people are dead, how they died, know their names. And then when we come back to this dimension, we're stuck with, screen memories. And the only thing we have is the PTSD. I had an individual reached out to me, I think it was last night or the night before. Their mother was an experiencer that worked with Dr. Carla Turner. Okay. This is another one because I've had one or two others that email me about her research. Anyways, this individual told me, okay, because again, I'm still trying to triangulate this sigil I was given from, not from Richard Doty, but it was shared by Richard Doty. So I got this sigil. I'm thinking, okay, what do I got to do? How can I track this down? Out of nowhere, boom, message. My mother was abducted by entities. She worked very closely with Dr. Carla Turner. And I said, okay, can you share some more of her stories? And they said, yes, absolutely. When my mother would return, she would be covered head to toe with sigils. Oops. Love and light. Sure. And that they would have to wrap her in a heated blanket, I think it was, because of the amount of pain she was in. Took her to the ER, and the doctor said, we don't know what this is. We've never seen it before. The only thing we can do with the burns is wrap her up in something. And then 3 days later, miraculously, they're gone. That's another motif we still can't explain. So there's a time frame to these sigils. There's a language system to these sigils. And more than that, there's a pathology. So you take that, and I'm starting to talk to this individual. And I said, let me test this out. Have you ever? I said, matter of fact, I said, what did they look like? They said it looked like Enochian or Theban alphabet. Okay. Boom. Have you seen this sigil? Yes. Mirrored each other. What? Yeah. So I'm thinking that our government knows, and that because the phenomenon transcends all known models, I think that they're left with no choice, right? Okay, yeah, fine. We're not even going to talk about this. Anybody that does talk about it's crazy. Meanwhile, they still have to perform ceremonial magic to please their sponsors. So something is manipulating our species. And I guess what I'm saying here, guys, that it's not a bug, it's a feature. And that whatever these are, at least some of them, they are a species of practitioner that we've never heard of. They transcend all sorcery, all magic, and they're using sigils on experiencers.
Well, you know what? Grey Wolf brought something up here, and I just want to talk to this for a minute.
Yeah.
And he says these entities seem to be interdimensional, so that opens up the possibility they may be demonic. Now, my question is, let's say that throughout human history, we have had this weird relationship with these interdimensional beings, and some of them, whatever they're parasitic, whatever the case may be, they are seen by us basically as evil if we don't do something to please our sponsor.
Yep.
Okay. Wouldn't we call them demons or evil at that point if they did something, right?
Yeah.
But maybe not all
Yeah.
of them are that way. right? So
Yeah.
uh, I guess that's like the rub, right?
Mhm.
It's like we could be having visitations from aliens that are attracted by what's going on with these interdimensional beings and our technology. Like, that could be happening. At the same time, we've been dealing with some of this stuff for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Let me say this real quick. A lot of this does, first of all, you guys know my model of the phenomenon. I think it's symbiotic and parasitic at the same time. And I think that's what we're dealing with, right? The symbiotic nature says, okay, we're just kind of immune, whatever. We'll just do our life, you do yours, everything's fine. But that phenomenon can turn parasitic. And we've seen that in parapsychology where we just think it's a poltergeist. It's just tossing covers and blankets in the air. And then once the phenomenon starts to build up energy, all of a sudden it switches archetypes, and now it's parasitic. Now it's an incubus, right? We compartmentalize the two for the longest time in parapsychology because then we never thought, right, that this phenomenon had its own pathology and that it was switching archetypes. For instance, for those that are unfamiliar with this part of my research, I'll kind of go into it and then I'll dive into some more of the darker
Yeah,
aspects.
you
So
you did bring up that you had a new case study that you wanted to share with us as well. So
yeah, yeah.
go
So
through it.
yeah, so dealing with these archetypes, I think that's how the phenomenon has existed with us throughout history. It's existed present with us, but absent from us at the same time. What's been present with us rather is the archetype. Okay, it's the guide, it's the deceased ancestor, it's the deity perhaps, it's the demigod, it's the idol, it's the unclean spirit. Getting back to some of these archetypes, there are times when the phenomenon wants us to know, like you look at the lamb in the Hebrew language, the name lamb has the same numerical value as an unclean spirit, idol, and a false god, and it manifests to Crowley. So what we're dealing with, again, a deity. Okay, yeah, that's who I am. So I think we're being manipulated more than anything. But getting back to this case study, dealing with parapsychology, when you had like Dr. Barry Tapp's case study with Doris Bither, she had two sons, and in this particular event, they would be in the room when the phenomenon would incarnate, and it would be like this ball of light or this kind of fog that would descend down upon her. And there was a difference. This is profound in my mind. There was a difference between what they saw the phenomenon doing and what she saw the phenomenon doing to her. So it was almost like an encapsulating experience where whatever this was would descend down upon her when she's sleeping, and she would start encountering these not demon, ghosts and what she thought were ghosts, and they thought it's okay, it's an incubus. So then later on, Dr. Barry Tapp said, okay, yeah, it's a poltergeist. But when you compare that to an event that an experiencer with Dr. Carla Turner encountered, where this ball of light descended down upon her, and they're yelling at this individual in the room, hey, can you get out of there? Right? What do you see? What do you see? The individual that was inside the orb could not hear them on the outside. They on the outside could not hear her screaming. But after the initial manifestation, she told them she thought it was a helicopter had come through the ceiling. Fast forward to this new case study that I'm looking at. It's another experiencer that worked with Dr. Carla Turner, the one with the sigils. This individual told me that they would be in the room with their father and the mother when a ghostly fog would move in with little orbs, and it would hover over their mother while she was sleeping. There's a difference. They saw fog, they saw orbs, but when they asked her what she saw little gray men. They were aliens. Now, here's a connection. In parapsychology, for 30 years, researchers were looking at apparitions thinking that's what we're dealing with. Has to be. That's what's manifesting. It wasn't until like about 20 years ago that people like Dr. Barry Tapp and Lloyd Arbach and Steve Miller, all these guys, they're phenomenal. They said, okay, is it possible that we're missing something? Now, it's going to be very deep for a second. In my research on epiphenomenon, it's almost like you're in a pool of water. something steps in and it creates ripples. It creates a wake in the water. What they were doing was measuring and documenting the ripples, not the entity, not the presence that displaced the water. And so that's when they started looking at their photographic evidence. Here's an apparition, here's a ball of light. That's when they realized the ball of light is projecting this apparition. You take that case study and you take that and compare it, contrast it to even cryptozoology and how we're seeing Bigfoot coming out of orbs. Then you go into seances where ghosts are coming out of them and guides are coming out of orbs. Is it possible we're being manipulated by a singular intelligence, not realizing that these are merely projections of some kind of other plasmoid energy that's manipulating our species? So my point, though, is there was a difference between what the experiencer was encountering on the inside, underneath the umbrella of the phenomenon, and what others were witnessing outside of it. And I think that's a key point.
Well, what do you think's going
makes
on with
sense.
that?
Number one, I think it's shielding the experiencer from crying out, number one, and shielding other people from hearing them crying out, number two. It's a complete disconnection of communication to where the phenomenon has the ability to incarnate specifically to that one person. Absolutely. To where it's not just manifesting to the experiencer, it's manifesting through them. To where, and I've seen this in Ikigai cases too, where I am dear Aunt Edna or I'm your deceased lover, and then the phenomenon will have the total attention of the experiencer. And now the experiencer is thinking, oh, I want to believe you are who you're appearing to be. The phenomenon starting to manifest through them to confirm the image it's incarnating as. And it makes sense. And it can only do that by having the undivided attention of the experiencer, cutting them off from communication. They can't hear the cry for help, and sometimes the experiencer can't even give it. So that is a disturbing aspect of it. But this particular experiencer, when she got back from the abduction, sigils from head to toe. So it is disturbing.
Okay, I'm thinking of the glowing orb that shut down Maelstrom.
Yep.
Do you remember that story? I don't remember the name of the commander of the missile thing, but he got the call from the guys up top saying there was a glowing orb and everything got shut down. Over in Russia, they had a similar thing, but all their stuff got turned on as if it was getting ready to launch things.
Yeah. The clock's going down. Yeah. Then it stopped it.
And then it stopped it. Now, what would be the point? What are these? If these are entities, what are they doing? I mean, it's the same thing like with these rituals for NASA and everything else. It's like, what is the why are you standing Obama in a circle and telling them to face a certain way when they're doing a launch? It just, what is the purpose of this? It makes no sense.
Unless
it's
deeper than we know. Unless
maybe that's where the alien comes in. Whatever they're doing, we can't understand it.
No, we have, we have no, let me just put it where it's at. With the Maelstrom case study, and I believe it is this case study, it wasn't just that they turn our nukes off and everything. When they went back into the motherboard, something was inside the silo and pulled cords out. So there are times when the phenomenon, and again, now we're looking for pathology as to why it's doing this, it will kind of put us in our place. I'm in control, you're not. And just from my perspective, it seems like a bargaining chip, like, okay, come back, right? We don't know yet what the phenomenon would do if we stopped honoring it. Let's go there for a second. Like, remember when we were kind of, hypothesizing as to why you would specifically place a president in a ceremonial ritual without his knowledge? That means that this authority that you're appealing to has a higher power than the president of the United States, that you would appeal more to it than the president. by placing him in that ritual. By the way, if rituals are broken or if something goes wrong, all hell could break loose. It did with Jack Parsons. It did there at Livermore Laboratories. But you're willing to put the most powerful man in the free world in the ritual circle? That would mean that whatever power you're trying to appeal to has more authority than the president of the United States. It was, and that's what scared me the most out of her interview was like, hold on a minute. He doesn't even know what he's doing. Absolutely not. Then what did not, okay, it's not about what it meant to us. What did it mean to the phenomenon to do that? Yeah, go ahead and place the most powerful man in the world in that ritual circle. Thank you.
Why would they need that? Like, that's that parasitical, symbiotic
demonstration of power. Demonstration of power. And now we're getting into the research as to what they are. You know, like one of my favorite researchers in the world, and I lectured with him in the UK. We were talking one day about the phenomenon, and he's come to the same conclusions I and others have. And, you know, we're in the same space where it's like, okay, I don't really care what the archetype is, right? They can manifest as anything. Doesn't mean that's what they are. They went through every archetype known to man. At the end of the day, we're still looking at pathology, bloody footprints in the snow. What are they doing? What do they want? And I said, what do they want? And I said, just shoot straight with me. Be as weird as you possibly can. If it has to, you have to be. He said, they want worship. They want worship. And so I'm like, okay, why would you say that? I asked him. He said, because when he was filming with Unsolved Mysteries, they were in this forest, a twisting tree in the darkness. They're about to wrap it up because there was no manifestation. They're like, okay, there's nothing here. All of a sudden, a crisp wind comes through. He said, and something manifested. The hair on the back of their neck stood up, and multiple voices spoke to them from the darkness. Bow down and worship us. So what is that? That's more akin to, and I said this before, if anybody has seen the movie Nosferatu, it's like Nosferatu when he told that young man in the movie, you will address me as Lord because my bloodline demands it. Whatever that is, forget horns and hooves, forget Crowley. We're dealing with something that is performing ritual magic, but could be, here's where I'm leaning towards. A formerly human practitioner, or multiple practitioners who are carrying on their work from this dimension to the afterlife, and just throwing this out there, being mentored by something else that's giving them even more. I don't know. I don't want to ramble. I tend to ramble, guys. That's where I'm at, though. That's the only thing I can come to, guys. That's what the evidence suggests. There's no reason why sigils should be on experiencers. Absolutely none. And yet they're coming back saying that, okay, I mean, you know, I'm being told, for instance, Matthew Roberts, again, back to the UAP witness, it wasn't just that this guy's like, hey, by the way, I want you to, you know, go read a book. That's what he said. I want you to go read a book. Now that you've witnessed this incarnation, I want you to go read the Kabbalion, back to Thelema. And then he said this too. He said that after this encounter, that he had an experience with a succubus. And they don't call it a succubus for whatever reason. I think it's because it gets back into demonology. And when it gets back into demonology, the conversation changes, and they have no answer for that because it starts to cover some of the darkness. Is this making sense to everybody? I know I have ADHD and I go everywhere, but I hope this is making sense, or at least piquing curiosity.
Well, I'm looking at something here, and again, I'm just, people that are listening to this in the future as a podcast, I'm gonna try to put this up throughout Spotify and stuff as a video so you can see some of this stuff. But just look at this. This is the layout of Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Capitol building's right here, I believe, at C. What?
Mhm.
What are
What
these
is
people
going on?
doing? Yeah. What are they playing with? What did Crowley or whoever, I mean, way before modern times, man, this stuff has
You
been,
don't.
and we've talked about that before.
Mhm.
Like the research you've done where it's like, oh, these people in the Bible are just totally describing an abduction experience,
Oh,
right?
oh yeah.
Right? Is-
Mhm.
but being abducted by what? To them, it's demons and
Yes.
possessions and stuff. So I don't know, man. It's just blowing my mind these connections and how people just don't care. And then we're even more distracted with phones and
Mhm.
entertainment every place you look. But everybody's getting fat, old, and dying.
Yeah.
You know,
It,
so yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is like our energy. It just feels like our energy is being sucked away, and I hear so many people talking about 2025. Look at all this stuff going on. All right, you're seeing it, but then I hear people talking about how it feels like there's something wrong, something's coming, something's off. All these people are saying the same exact thing,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they're not connected in any way. They're not empaths. They're nothing. I just feel like there's something off.
Oh, it's coming, and I'll kind of point to how dark it could be getting. We've already made some connections to Lamb, Crowley, Jack Parsons, Thelema, right? Golden Dawn, Goetic, and Enochian, Theban sigils and skin. Remember when I said that there are some things that the phenomenon is doing that's not for everybody?
Hmm.
It's not for us even. We're on the outside, right? We're just going to work, living our lives in kind of piquing, interest and looking into the phenomenon a little bit. So the phenomenon is doing things specifically for targeted individuals. I don't mean that in terms of they're going after them negatively, but there seems to be a recruitment program going on. I have a compendium of Lamb practitioners from all across the world, and what they have been being told in their rituals is Lamb is the way and the egg is Lamb. Enter Jake Barber, who's saying, yeah, we've been recovering these UAPs, and there's sigils in them.
In what shape are they?
I have photographs of them. Someone shared them with me, but I have yet to verify them. But if what I have is what I think it is, the reason Luma Lazando is saying they're not an earthly language, yeah, because they're sigils. They're sigils. Now,
But doesn't
just
he
like
say
the,
they were egg shaped?
yes, yes. So it appears the phenomenon is dropping things, incarnating something. And then that which is manifesting, it's not for our government, it's not for us. I believe 100% that it's designed for certain practitioners to collect, and it's a race for time. We've got to reverse this UAP. Why? Because if it gets in the wrong hands, it's over. So that's what I believe is happening. But they're being told now, not just that lamb is the egg and that lamb is the way, but literally in their rituals, they're being told by his apprentices and his, I guess, assistants in these rituals, to focus their eyes into the eyes of Lamb, into the eyes. And one of the reasons they said it was the egg is because they believed his head was shaped like an egg. And so in their rituals, they would stare into the eyes of the entity. Yeah, there we go.
That
Into
guy.
the entity. Yes, absolutely. Into the entity, and then there would be some kind of transference of energy, and you would, this is crazy, you would be absorbed into the orb of light. That you're exactly right. That's another common pathology. Not just, I mean, incubus sessions where you have to stare into the eyes. When you stare into the eyes, something happens. That's interreligious, cross-cultural. But that's another motif in the phenomenon, that it's manifesting to us in ways that if we did not have a background in the occult, if we did not have an understanding of phenomenology, we would just go around thinking it's extraterrestrial. But now with this new context, it appears that disclosure is not for us. Nanotechnology, it's not for us. We may reverse engineer some of it on accident. But guys, it's not the self-assembling metamaterial. It's not. It's the dust it turns into when they realize it's not for us. We get a little remnants of it. So my point is, yes, if the nanotechnology is not for us, then what makes us think that these gifts of UAPs are for us?
Who would they be for?
I'm leaning towards practitioners. Absolutely. Again, so the idea, first of all, look at what Chris Bledsoe had to go through to be approached by the government, to have a conversation with them, to where they took these materials, gave it to them, and seen, okay, are they going to self-assemble? If not, right, are they going to deassemble? If not, you're not the one. Look what he had to go through. He had to go through an abduction, right? He had to get prophecies. He had to have healings. The Pentagon had to investigate him. Tim Taylor had to come to his door. They had to vet this man through and through to get to that moment. Is this why the phenomenon is giving us this? Because Richard Benrick said it's not for us. Like, we could not reverse engineer it. All we had was dust, and maybe we could do things with that. But so my point is that there does seem to be a seeding mechanism. And I think the government's lying to us when they say it's just for us. It's not. It appears to be for certain individuals, or for a certain individual to use.
Dude.
Is this making sense? I hope I'm not shooting blanks here, man.
No, when I did that
Crazy.
disclaimer, I think I did that more for me.
Yep.
Because I'm just
you see where we're at, though, brother.
Dude, I'm sharing this. What the actual F?
Now you have context. Now, can I break this down?
Look in her hand.
There we go.
Now, I wasn't even aware that this book was out, to be perfectly honest. I've got Elizondo's book. I got the audiobook. I got the audiobook of Pasuka and some other people like Timothy Alberino, who's a Christian, digging into this from a very hardcore Christian perspective. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of that, but the UFO of God.
Mm-hmm.
Worship me, dude.
There we go. Ding, ding, ding. Right? Worship me. Bow down and worship me. This, I mean, come on. Which God? Can I throw that out there? Which God?
Who?
Which God? Because I know Hathor is not an ambassador of Yahweh. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Guys, the Vatican knows this. They're not ignorant, right? You're dealing with, can you imagine Malachi Martin hearing this? Really? Imagine that conversation on Art Bell's show. Hi, I'm in a UFO of God. It would be like, oh my God. Why? Because, again, when you have a Thor who's trying to represent Yahweh, that's ridiculous. That's like, you got to understand this. They're not doing this to Bible scholars. They're not doing that, right? They're not doing this to Diana Walsh Pasuka, because they would see through the phenomenology. If you're Hathor, we got to compare what we know of Yahweh Elohim to what you're telling me now. And guys, Hathor's not in there. She's never been a prophet in the Bible. She wasn't a prophetess. There was no incarnation of Hathor. The divine name, even the angel, and the Old Testament, the angel, right? Yahweh, the divine name was never in Hathor. That was the only way Yahweh communicated through his people. It's not there. Yeshua, Yahweh has become my salvation. Why? Because we had part of the divine name. Even in the burning bush with Moses, there's called the Aleph Tav, which is his name, Aleph Tav. I am the beginning and I am the end. Man, I'm getting passionate, guys. And he put his name in him. I am the, why? Yahweh has become my salvation. He literally, in Yeshua's name, he had Yahweh's name. In Hebrew mythology, that's called the utterance of the divine name. So he gave the divine name to them so that they could speak on behalf of him, not to Thor. Nowhere. So this is why I get so worked up, is because, and I'm telling you, if Nathaniel Gillis knows this, the Vatican does. And if the Vatican knows this, Diana Walsh-Pasuka does too, that there is a profound manipulation going on here. Now, if that's Hathor coming out of an orb, then I guess that it's Bigfoot coming out of an orb too. And I guess that was my guide coming out of an orb. And I guess that was a ghost coming out of an orb. Or is it possible these are archetypes and that we can't trust some of these entities any more than we can trust Hathor? And but that's where I'm at with it. And I think they know that too. But here's where we're at. The phenomenon has pushed us into a corner where it really doesn't matter if you validate it by virtue of literacy and scholarship. It's going to give you a miracle. And it will validate its own message by virtue of performing the miracle. And the problem is everybody wants to experience the phenomenon, not realizing that when you experience it, you are being experienced by it. And there is a sharing of symbiotic relationship created. And Dr. Barry Fitzgerald, and I've noticed this too, he gives it a timeline. You have but seconds before that proto-intelligence doesn't manifest to you, begins manifesting through you, commandeers your thought, manipulates your perception, manipulates your emotions, and it will have you agreeing with it before you even understand what's going on. That's what's happening, my friend.
Dude.
But Hathor, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Council of Nine, oh, they seem extraterrestrial. They weren't. Really? Right? Even the Kozyrov mirrors in the Russian Academy of Sciences, okay, yeah, that's got to be an alien, or is it a homunculi? If it's a homunculus, we've got even a more significant problem here, right? Because what we're seeing is the phenomenon, as I've stated in times past. Here's an archetype, here's the proto-intelligence. I always thought these were co-present in cases. They weren't. One was wearing the other as a mask. I'm Hathor. I'm Hathor. And then by the time, I'm Hathor. No, I'm something else. And when that incarnates, all rules are off. There is no ceremonial magic. It will transcend it all. And that's where I'm at. But my God, just this past October, we had a parapsychological conference in Germany where they were using necromancy to contact extraterrestrials. What are we doing? Where is the model leading us to?
Yeah, what is going on? Like, what is the end game? I mean, turn us all into a bunch of worshiping, brain dead, entertained. What's the movie, Michelle?
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy.
Yeah, that's an awesome movie.
But
Poignant.
Just add on top of that the idea of you're too dumb to even realize you've been hoodwinked so much and it's been in your face so much, but you're entertained and you are so brain dead that you don't realize that you're worshiping us. Just keep giving us all that energy.
Let me.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes,
Even wanted to see the mug.
Let me put it to you this way, and this is something I've been toying with as of late. Some of these rituals, we're being told they're done for them. I think they're being done to conjure us. By the time these people build the altars, by the time they carve the sigils and they start going through the ceremony, by the time it starts and finishes, they're obeying the whole time. And then the phenomenon manifests. Okay, we're so excited about manifestation. right? We want the pomp and circumstance, not us, but others. Oh my God, I got to get it on film. If I get it on film, my message is right. What they told me is true. See? And so we think that's when the phenomenon manifested first. No, the phenomenon manifested first in thought. That's the manifestation we need to look at. Not the pomp and circumstance. Oh my God, look at the miracle. No, that's the product of manifestation. That's epiphenomenon. That's the ripple in the pool. Everybody, oh, look at that. We celebrated. We got it on film. Not true. So what I'm saying is that we need to start looking at thoughts, right? It's just like the primordial man, and I mentioned this in times past, stoking the embers of a dying fire. I want you. Here's a download. Boom. There's a piece of metal out there. Where are we seeing that now in modernity, right? Designed for a practitioner. Okay, what do you want me to do? I want you to go get it. Number one, I placed it right near you for a reason. I gifted it to you. Carve my name into that metal. And the carving of my name, which is also a sigil, by the way, sigil magic, memory will merge with matter. There's your nanotechnologies, your metamaterials. And then you implant that. There's your abduction. Implant that into a corpse. The phenomenon now incarnates through that avatar. That's just ufology. No, it's not. That's necromancy.
Isn't that an ancient golem? Isn't that what they...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a whole nother show. So if I can go down this path for a second. So you know how, again, ufology thinks that they're the culmination of all literacy and intellectual prowess. It's not. It's the repackaging of ancient esotericism through and through. We've already discussed some of that. Now, in terms of hybridization, which they also want to be, anointed as the patron saint of, right? Oh, we came up with hybridization. They didn't. Did you know that the Hebrew word for golem means fetus?
No.
And yes, and the rabbi in Prague was taking the golem, and carving sigils into its skin. Oh, what? And the phenomenon would manifest through the skin and the sigil, incarnate through that individual. Right. Thank you. And we're thinking, because ufology is like, hey guys, nothing to see here. This is all well and good. It's like a thumbs up, right? No, they're using sigil magic again, just like that incarnation. The sigils incarnated an entity, and that entity commandeered that golem. Now, if you take that and place that in the context of hybridization, what's really happening with the missing fetus syndrome? If we just change the names, if we just understand that in incubi literature with Father Sinister of Amino, that when he was in these houses within an hour of the phenomenon manifesting, that whatever these entities were leaving biological secretions and sigils on the skin of the incubus victim. What do we see here, ladies and gentlemen? It's not hybridization ufology, right? Now we're dealing with something so far underneath the surface that people rarely talk about it. But it was sigil magic used in the middle of the impregnation of the fetus. So it's the same thing with the homunculus, same thing with the golem, same thing with the missing fetus syndrome. And as I've stated in times past, the phenomenon incarnates primarily in three ways: incantations, implantations, and impregnation. You guys got me all pumped up, so that's why I'm rambling, man. I'm just shooting from the hip tonight. But we don't understand it. We really don't. I mean, again, if the phenomenon is in charge of disclosure's not for us.
Did you pick up on that interview with Sean Ryan and Diane Pasuka where she said that not Crowley, Parsons manifested his wife?
Yep. Yes.
What the hell is she talking about?
It's a woman designed to procreate with. They were looking for the golden child, which points us right back. And I think that's exactly what we're dealing with hybridization. And it goes back to ancient Mesopotamian rituals dealing with, I'm just going to say this, the moon child, golden child. I'm just going to say golem, if you know what I'm saying. The Hebrew word for golem magic. in how entities would incarnate by virtue of commandeering the fetus, which is, by the way, what I think is going on in Incubus case studies. Yes, it's the moon child. Absolutely. Exactly right.
You know, we have friends that are religious and they're Muslim, and they believe in a whole nother society of these jinn entities. Were here before we were. This was their place. And they got wiped out, but they're still here. It sounds very familiar, like with the Watchers in their religious text. And I'm sure I'm butchering it, but that's kind of like the gist of it. That there was these beings of some type, and they're still here. If that's the case, what I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to feel like Sean Ryan now. Like I'm trying to formulate a question, and my brain is just short circuiting. Like, how far back does this stuff freaking go? In why do they, if they're interdimensional beings, again, the symbiotic and parasitic nature of these things, why
It
the
doesn't make
hell?
sense.
It doesn't make sense. Why would they even be concerned with us? Why aren't they just going throughout the rest of the universe and finding other life forms, or like humans? I think if we had these incredible powers, we wouldn't be sitting here on this planet. Let's go to Alpha Centauri and see what's there. We have that exploration. We want to figure things out, and boy, we'd be zip zapping all over the place like Star Trek, But it seems like it always comes back to the supernatural. We're being played with, but we're trying to play with them. And I think that's kind of where our government is. Do they think they can
100%.
control this stuff?
Oh, God, no. No.
Dude.
So, in the Collins Lee research, their conclusion was that there are factions in our government. This is the throughout all of their conclusions, the one that reigned supreme was that the only chance we have of survival was to perform rituals for them, and they've done this, to where the phenomenon will partially manifest technology or architecture, blueprints of something after the ritual's performed, which, guys, we thought this was science fiction for years, my friends. Nathaniel's off his rocker. He's nuts. Now we know that's exactly what's going on. With that taken into consideration, now let's look at the Collins Elite research with fresh eyes. It was after these practitioners performed their rituals that the phenomenon would partially manifest nanotechnology. But it was almost like your hand goes through it. What is it? Is it apparitional? Didn't make any sense. But their idea of this was that our only chance was to perform the ritual, hope that the proto-intelligence would slip up, allow us to reverse engineer whatever materialized, and then we could use that weapon against them if they ever invaded. Not a good position to be in, but it goes to show you exactly where we're at right now in the space program. Barack, Mr. President, yeah, it's cool, right? Yeah, you're the leader of the free world, but there's a higher power out there that we're entertaining, and we have to honor them before we honor you. Stand in this circle. Would you?
Stand right here, please.
Would you look in this direction? Thank you. What?
Well, it's
what
just
are
like,
we doing here?
right. It's just like, and I think somebody mentioned this in chat a while ago, but like Bohemian Grove.
It's all there.
I used to think that was just some crazy, oh, here we go, conspiracy theory nut job stuff, until you see the actual videos in the, what is it, the ceremony of cares, or where they're throwing an effigy of a baby in a fire. What? And it's these international and bigwig people in business and politics
Mhm.
doing something like that from the Middle Ages or some crap.
There we
Right.
go. And something in the darkness is grooming them, courting them.
And they're running
Here's
things.
here's a little bit of power. Mm. Here's a little bit of technology. And this is the question that we're pondering right now is what do they get from all of this? You know, in some of the ancient literature regarding offerings to the dead, which I believe again is another parasitic, it's a mimic, which we can get to that in a second. How much time do we have? Like 30 minutes? We got a little bit of time?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So involving the parasitic memory that's occurring, it's there through and through. And I think that's why it's manifested through archetypes. You know, in parasitism, this is fascinating. One of the ways the parasite blends into reality is by playing dead, powerless. I'm just here. I suggest that some of the entities that have been ghosts to us is in fact the phenomenon playing dead in our environment. And we're thinking, steering Edna, that's so and so, not realizing it's just another parasitic mimic designed, right, to be present with us but absent from us, seeing through the eyes of a deceased ancestor, courting us, not realizing it's not who it appears to be at all. Parasitic mimicry, and it's designed to deceive. The only way it can survive is by deception. And I believe 100% that's why the phenomenon has existed for thousands of years. Not just that, but it has perception management employed to where if you, first of all, you're not going to remember a lot of what you experienced. But if you do, is it really who it said it was? And if it wasn't, right? Again, you see how they'll constantly go to certain lengths to shut experiencers down. Like some of Dr. Carter Turner's last research was about sigils, was about these symbols in skin. And when she got too close, the phenomenon said, we don't want that kind of disclosure. Go ahead with the ET, guys. Go ahead. None of that, right? Go ahead with the love and light narrative. Right? I mean, of course, you know, I've had lovers in times past that carved Enochian sigils into me. I don't know about you, right? That's what they want. And at the end of the day, it's experiences like myself, Robert Bartholomew, and others that when we get too close, the phenomenon, don't look over there. And why? Because they're controlling the archetype that's present in the earth right now. They're in control of that. But what are they? You know, some of the case studies throughout history regarding not just ghosts, but entities that literally further their own existence by virtue of ceremonial magic. To where that's right, that's the symbiotic relationship between us and them. And like some of the like the Katamua inscription in 2008, this in Curly expedition, where the University of Chicago deployed archaeologists to Syria in, I think it was Syria, I believe, and they uncovered the sarcophagi of Katamua, and he's talking about transferring his consciousness from his body into metal. See, now we're in the conversation of AI and again the prolonging of existence to stop the extinction of a life form. And so in this conversation, he's starting, scholars didn't know what to do with it because until then they believed that the soul died and it was, you know, the soul was with the body, that kind of Eastern thought. And yet in this inscription, he's talking about necromancy. Once you perform these rituals for me, I'm going to be able to leave my body and possess technology or something metallic, and my existence will be furthered by the ritual itself. So that is a possibility, right? That in their world, in the afterlife, I'm just throwing this out there, that these rituals serve some purpose to further their own existence. And to that point, and I guess I'll kind of wrap up my point here, is that we're not just seeing that in ancient literature, the Katamua inscription, we're seeing that in incubi literature, where, right, the red rite and the ultimate black mass, where the reason the sigils were present, the reason the seed, the excretion was present, is because you have a practitioner that's trying to inseminate, and then through the power of sigil magic, will possess the fetus as itself, have a new avatar to inhabit, and so it prolongs its own existence.
Yeah, that Yeah, it just blows your mind. The depths of all of this stuff. And speaking of AI, I asked AI and everybody out there that's still here with the show. If you want to ask Nathaniel a question before we head out for the night, put it all in caps and we'll review it and get it to him. But I asked AI, I said, AI, I said, do you know who we have on for a guest?
Oh no.
And it was like, yeah, you guys are having on Nathaniel Gillis. He's going to be a great show. It's probably going to be a dark conversation
No
as things.
way.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. So I said, well, if you had a chance to ask him a question, what would you ask him? And it came back with this. The elite and ruling classes have long been accused of practicing secret rituals, sometimes involving bloodlines, oaths, and sacrifices. Could there be a hidden reason why high level officials participate in esoteric ceremonies tied to the UFO phenomena? Bro, what the actual F?
That's necronetics, brother. It's
talking to you.
Yeah. It knows.
It knows
knows.
you, man.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I know. It blows my mind too. Yeah. It's present. Here's the problem that I have. Okay. One of the gaslighting techniques some people employ. Well, what are they? Well, first of all, I don't have to know what they are to know what they're doing. I don't. We know what they're doing, right? They're taking people. With Todd Cease, by the way, they took Todd Cease out and they said that this is terrifying. This is one of the darker aspects of it, where we don't talk about cattle mutilation. They found Todd Cease in a tree. You know this case study?
No, which one is this?
His name is Todd Cease. Todd Cease went out on a hunting trip. It was about noon when he told his wife, "I'm gonna go." When I was four-wheeler, he said, "I'm gonna go and I'm gonna look around the area that I'm gonna be hunting at tomorrow. I'm gonna look at the tree stand, make sure everything's sturdy, see if there's any activity out there." He went missing, and they found him in the tree. Then they asked the neighbors what they saw, and they said they just saw a light hovering over from a distance, hovering over the tree, something going into it. When they did an autopsy on him, he had small abrasions in his brain to where the pain was so tough. They found him afterwards. So you take all of that, you kind of package it together. They know for sure. Number one, they know people are being taken. They can't stop it. They're being taken in and out of body. The sigils that are being carved into them is not just in the flesh. It's almost like in their consciousness themselves from underneath the skin to the surface. We don't even know what that is. And so at the end of the day, the only thing that could shock the Collins elite out of their own skin, out of their own religious dogma, would be something that would be like Dr. Carla Turner's theory, where it's a farm, and almost an artificial habitat where beings come in and out, but the only time we see them are by virtue of archetypes they incarnate as, never as who they really are. Case in point, Dr. Carla Turner's experiencer. It's a fog over her as she's sleeping. They see a fog and orbs. She sees entities. That should not be happening. If they're love and light, why can't you just be who you are? Why do you have to manipulate us? And I'm probably getting killed in the comments. I don't mean to be this controversial. But yeah, some of these aspects of it are very, very troubling.
All right, so let's open this up to questions, everybody. So if you have a question for Nathaniel, please put it all in caps, and let's have him answer some stuff for the next like 15 minutes or so. If you guys want to ask him something, and Nathaniel, we haven't talked since the last Olympics. What the hell was that Dionysus / Jesus?
I'm questioning everything now. Like, who are we doing this for? It's not a conspiracy anymore. Diana Walsh, she kind of blew the lid off of that. If they're doing this for sponsors, quote sponsors, then now I have to kind of retroactively go back to other rituals that we thought were just, cute, right? They were just for show, and I have to ask myself, like, okay, who was that really for? Who's really in control of this world? Is what I'm saying.
I don't know. And then there's always the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
right? These are like live in your face ceremonies. Again,
Stand over here.
yeah. Stand in the circle, look over here. Don't worry, everything is
Choreography.
fine.
Choreography for the President of the United States. Now,
Is that so they let the rockets out? I mean,
what is going on here? And I remember when Sean Ryan kind of played it off like, I don't really think that's a big deal. And then Diana was like, oh, yeah, it is. That's a huge deal.
So T-Bone asks, has Mr. Gillis heard of Amy Eskridge, rest in peace, and his opinion of her interviews?
I have not heard of her.
Yeah,
but if you like her, I'll check her out, and most likely I'll like her research too.
All right. Who else has a question out there? Because if I start digging into more stuff, then you guys aren't going to get a chance to ask a question.
Yeah, it's deeply fascinating, but it's deeply troubling.
Yeah.
It's I mean, we can go any direction you want to, but yeah, these do seem to be, and not just initiatory practices, involuntary initiatory practices. And I'm starting to think that some of these people are not being groomed as practitioners, but they are involved in the actual ritual, not realizing it until they get back in their body or back into their homes, and then they see, oh my God. There we go. The question.
Yeah, here we go from Metalhead. Do you think all this or these activities are welcoming the Antichrist? Oh man, I've been staying away from that because when I think of they're looking for somebody to put those metals, hold on to this. And if it doesn't turn to dust, to me, it's like they're searching out the Antichrist.
Yes.
Oh my God.
The phenomenon is giving us technology, hoping that the right person gets a hold of it in time. Our government's looking for the same person. Are you the one, Wyatt? Remember that in Tombstone? You're the one, Wyatt. No, I murdered that guy. You're the one, Wyatt. Yeah, basically the same question. I do believe they're looking for somebody, but again, in eschatology, it's important to note this as well. In eschatology, the Antichrist is not anti-Jesus, anti-God. It would be akin to the UFO God, where it's replacing the old one with the new one.
Well,
And
I mean, we're seeing that right now under the guise of, transhumanism.
Yep.
I mean, everything now is the government's your God. Your rights come from the government, not your creator. Whatever. Throw that stuff away. Well, all right. Brian asks, are we on Earth or is it in fact purgatory?
Good question.
I mean, I guess you got to have a definition of purgatory, right? What exactly is that? And it depends on like which religion you're talking about. Everybody had a different idea about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what. My dog is. Hold on, you can hear my dog, guys. I'm gonna get somebody to get my dog so it doesn't bust through my door and ruin this interview.
Oh,
I have a Shar-Pei, and she's very, very attached to me. So I apologize to everybody. I don't know about it being purgatory. I know that some of Diana Walsh Pasuka's research covers that. If this is purgatory, what would hell be? I'm starting down to my research. I'm looking at hell and what hell was before we were told what it was, and it was Sheol, basically in Hebrew thought, and everybody went there, good and bad, and then they went to some kind of judgment. I personally don't think this is purgatory. With that said, I do believe that there are portions of reality that are fabricated by the phenomenon,
Well,
hiding in plain sight. So I think I would lean more towards that model. But great question.
I'm thinking more and more we're living in the damn Truman Show.
Yes.
So as we see things exposed, and hopefully more people will get that veil removed from their eyes to see, what our government's really been about all this time. In your name, people, in your name, what they've been doing. But anyways, Bad Wolf 66 asks, is this even the real Earth or just a bad copy?
Good question. That's my buddy Peter. Good to see you, buddy. So in some of the Gnostic literature, they talk about how God turned into a demon, and they kind of fabricated a new reality, a new world. I do believe that again that there are nuances about this world that do seem to be fabricated. I believe that's by the phenomenon in order to hide in plain sight. I don't know if I told you guys this in the last show, but my brother was a part of a group of researchers that were placing cameras. They were, I think, at Utah Basin, cameras on all the light poles, right? And they saw something materialize as a ball of light. We can't really trust these balls of light, guys. And then by the time it moved from one frame to another, it had manifested to a Cessna, to a plane that was just blending in.
Yeah. I remember you telling us that.
Right. What I'm leaning into now is that it wasn't the black cat that they were showing Neo in the Matrix. The point of the black cat was to point him in the direction, to show him that there is a fabricated reality around you. This is not real. So in a way, it was the paranormal that really revealed to him the nature of his environment. And I think that to that point, guys, we need to start considering whether or not real is real, reality is authentic. Another good guy, Steve Merritt's brilliant researcher. He was talking about one time he was working for the government in the UK. I think it was the British Ministry of Defense. They had a paranormal hotspot near one of their buildings. So he set up shop, cameras, the whole 9 yards. And he detected paranormal activity and different signatures emanating from this particular patch of trees, blended with reality, my friends. People are driving by it, right? Oh, that's good. Look at those trees. That's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And he said he just got up one day and they're gone. Whole patch of trees. They did soil samples and there was no evidence of any root system present. The phenomenon blending in with reality. So my point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are so stuck on the paranormal because we could see it. We're not realizing the phenomenon is blending in with our environment. And that's what Richard Banderick said about the metamaterial. He said that when it wasn't in your hand, you let it go and it blended in with where it was. What is that? Parasitic mimicry.
All right. We got to T-Bone asks a great question. Mm-hmm. In your opinion of Chris Bledsoe, is he being deceived?
That's a tough question. I think he's a genuine man. I think he's very sincere. I just think that people underestimate how convincing this phenomenon is. If someone came to me and started, because I hate math. I can't do math at all. If somebody started using mathematical terms to me, like with, PhD level, I would be out of my depth. I would have no frame of reference. I would just go with you, right? Because you'd know best.
Right.
I couldn't do it. I have ADHD. I would just give up. After a certain point, man, I'm like, I'm done. Because I have no frame of reference. I have no ability to test the spirit. I have I can't say, okay, so I would just have to go along with you. But to your point, if you look at the way the phenomenon is manifested to him, the pathology is disturbing. Number one, they're balls of light. Okay, the same balls of light he is saying are angels tried to hang a man in the San Pedro haunting with Jackie Hernandez. It's one of Dr. Barry Taft's cases. Nobody talks about it, right? But they did. Jeff Wheatcraft. Balls of light the size of beach balls of basketballs floating in and out of the house, not dust particles. The same balls of light that he's saying are angels tried to hang a man in the attic. The same balls of light that he's saying is foreign angels incarnate at the skull experiment as one of the guys, looking at them laughing and communicating with one of the psychics. I'm one of your guide. I'm your guide. And when they saw it, there was such an amount of terror that filled the room. Side quest. The phenomenon had just incarnated and it did not have enough time to start thinking for them. It was fresh. It was, yes, this is what it is. What is that, right? Close the whole thing down. We don't know what that is. Came from a ball of light. So what we're being fed is ufology. What we need to be understanding is phenomenology, because phenomenology is the only way to test the spirit. That's one. The second thing is, yes, the manifestation is disturbing because it had to cut a dog, let it bleed out in front of witnesses, and then heal him miraculously. What kind of an angel cuts somebody just to prove a miracle? No. Number two, again, when you're looking at them and thanking them, there's a certain fine line between appreciation and worship. You're so beautiful. Thank you. When you start getting into that aspect of it, that's disturbing because, again, it's almost, and I'm just going to throw this out there, the more you appreciate it, the more thankful you are for it, it starts to manifest more, which shows you the pathology that the Collins elite did, right? Okay, if you perform an amount of worship and ceremonial magic, it will manifest more. Side note, yeah, I do have an issue with the UFO thing. That's not even historically accurate. But if you know phenomenology, you know they don't really care if it's historically accurate. They're not manifesting to Michael Heiser or Chuck Missler. Doesn't. The only thing the miracle has to be witnessed. That's it. They don't care about anything else. Now,
Yeah.
the white lady has manifested to other people under different names. But you know what? We see that in hauntology too. In our minds, right? We just thought that was a bride that died on her wedding day. So the archetypes are switching, and so I'm looking at what's actually going on. So I do believe he's a sincere guy, and I don't dislike him at all. I just think that the experience needs to be rooted in phenomenology, and that's it.
Well, looking at now that they say things are UAPs, are you more comfortable with UAP than UFO because of the whole phenomenology type of aspect of it? Because it seems like Elizondo is very much national security. You know, these things. You know, he's very reserved when he talks about these things and how strange things are. And I'm thinking he leans more toward these are not nuts and bolts types of things, but I could be wrong on that.
Well, the phenomenon is evolving according to our awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
The airships, right, evolved into flying saucers with Kenneth Arnold, and then all of a sudden it started spreading like wildfire. Oh, you think I'm flying saucers? I'm flying saucer. I'm flying saucer. Up until you have case studies where it would manifest as a flying saucer, but it have rivets in the sides, where, right, scientific method says that couldn't fly 10 feet. You're going thousands of miles an hour. Those rivets would bust out. You're going to crash. Like so. What we see again is the phenomenon incarnating by virtue of our expectations sometimes in trying to blend into reality. And just like in incubi cases where that's my deceased lover, there are certain facial features that doesn't fit the bill. Just like we're seeing that in that particular field of research, we're seeing it in ufology too, to where it wants to appear as something. But there's always something wrong to where we can discern beyond the archetype. And I think that's what he's talking about is, yes, certainly some of these do appear to be nuts and bolts, but they're not based on the scientific method. It's apparitional and interdimensional.
All right, last question.
Some of them. Okay.
Let's do the last question, then we'll get out of here. It's getting late. So Sir Brian asked once, last question is, so is there rules to the universe, all levels, here and outside Earth, that these entities must follow? Humans must witness, all rituals must confirm or conform to, right, etc.
So the only rules I know that they follow are from the archetype itself. Okay, horns and hooves, they're going to fear holy water until the proto-intelligence manifests, and then that plays by no rules. I may have told you this again in the last show, and I mention it all the time. One of my good friends was in a investigation, some malevolent haunting. They called the priest 666 everywhere. You know, the 3 scratches. It's got to be a demon. That's the archetype. So they're co-present, right? That's what they thought. Oh, it's co-present. There's a demon here, but there's something else here too. So they went and got a priest. The priest brings a vial of holy water and places it in the middle of the most active room. They watched the phenomenon. This is important for all the researchers out there, especially if you're doing investigations. They watched as the phenomenon that they thought was co-present pull the mask off, pull the demon's mask off, and siphon the holy water completely out of the bottle. That's what we're dealing with. So the rules that we think they follow, it's only applied to the mask, only applied to the archetype. That's what our government realized in the Livermore laboratories, right? Stand in the circle, they won't touch us. Who told us that? They did. Jack Parsons, right? Led to believe, hey, listen, everything's kosher. They told me they'll do A, B, and C. I know them, right? Of course. And they didn't. And so this constant nature of not just pushing the rules, but literally just making them up is not designed to give us insight into their world. It's designed for them to manipulate us, to allow us to assume control to where we think we're in control of the phenomenon. I'm conjuring and it's conjuring us. So I don't believe that they do follow rules yet. I'm still searching for some. I do have some indications with respect to incubi literature. One entity, it was considered a dibuk or a dibuk, where it had accosted a woman that was newly married immediately after consummating with her husband on the wedding night. Had it copulated, it possessed her, and through interfacing with it, the exorcist asked, "Why now?" And the entity said, "We are forbidden to touch her until she has been married, consummated." And then you see some pathology. But again, these are archetypes, and I'm not sure we can even trust the archetype.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Nathaniel, mind-blowing, creepy, dark as always, man. Just we went deep tonight, and man, we're just scratching the surface again. It's so awesome to have you on the show again, and
Thank you.
we are going to have you back and talk more about this in your research and things that you are finding out there. And at least so people out there can see it and understand what you're experiencing and the people that you're trying to help are doing, and dealing with. So with that being said, Nathaniel, we're going to say good night and we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right. God bless, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, Michelle.
Dude, I remain quiet, but my mind is like blown.
Always, dude.
Dude.
Always. All right, everybody. We're gonna end this real quick. What do you think?
I think part of my brain is on this side of the escalator. My other brain is on the other side of the escalator.
Just get the sage ready.
Oh my gosh.
So, okay. All right, everybody, we're going to jump out of here. It's almost at the 2-hour mark. It's a Sunday night, and hopefully a lot of people have tomorrow off since it's President's Day. It'll be nice for us. Michelle's on midwinter break.
I am.
All right, Michelle.
Needed.
I think it's that time.
Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night. And to everybody in chat and to all of our super chatters. Hold on. Let me give everybody a quick thank you. So we had Nathan from the Quantum Show, super chat. Gary with a super sticker. We had Aaron's Energy 313 with a super chat. We had T-Bone gifting 5 memberships. Thank you, T-Bone. Kelly Lewis signed up for her 11th month. Diane signed up for her 17th month. She's been there from the beginning. And then we had T-Bone for a super chat from Canada. So thanks a lot, everybody. And remember, get some good sleep and keep your eyes to that
Sky.
sky as
The
Michelle
sky.
is falling down.
Yeah.
All right. Where's the button at?